All right, cool. So here we are. Hello, all my fellow Earthlings, conscious beings, people watching, listening for episode, count it all on both hands now. Number 8 of Iris of Our Eye. I am still the host, Zycon Ebb and Flow. And today I have the privilege of sitting down with Thomas Richards. I met Thomas. Well, this is actually technically the first time we're meeting face to face, even though it's like through the internet. But I was introduced or found out about this artist through Threads, which is just like Twitter for Instagram or Facebook or Meta, like whatever we're calling it. And I just thought it was like super trippy and like psychedelic esque. Maybe not specifically, but just very almost like retro in a way. I don't know how you would describe your art, but that's kind of like how it resonates and sits in my eyes. And then that's kind of the extent of our relationship so far. So I'm just like really excited to sit down and see what Thomas has to say. So Thomas, for the people, maybe go about defining your style of art, or I can actually like put right here like a piece if you want me to show them. But obviously we're not gonna see it, but I don't know. Whichever one comes to mind, I'll like put it here so people are looking at it as you're describing it as like your style, or just start with that. Yeah, your style of art, man.
Okay, yeah. I'll start like from the beginning, like where I got into art and how stuff went. So, way back, I got my first digital camera probably about 6, 7 years ago now, an actual DSLR when I was getting ready to go on a vacation with my wife. I was like, I don't want to take pictures with just my phone. I want to use a real camera. So that got me into a lot of digital photography, a lot of black and white photography as well. And it was sort of just hanging around my local area, taking pictures of, like my kids. I play music, I play guitar, so I go to an open jam near here. So I've taken pictures of the musicians and, doing sort of that like music band promotion stuff a little bit. And then about 2 years ago, I got into digital glitching. So, I always liked having stuff that was distorted and not just perfect. So I started using some apps on my phone to take the pictures I was taking, turn them black and white, and put the effects on top. And that's where my brand, like distorted reality, really came from. That there's more out there than what we perceive, right? And reality needs a little bit of distortion to spice things up. As I dove farther into this crazy world of glitch art, I also fell in with the AI, the generative AI space. Very early on, I was an early adopter of Midjourney. The output was, quite trippy, not realistic at all, bizarre, weird stuff. You can have these things turn out that lent really well with, my other style that was coming up. And through the same parallel with that, I started doing analog work. So I actually have some CRTs in my basement, that I have some circuit bent video mixing equipment from the 90s that I use to distort that signal and get some of that, signature look that I've been having lately. I call it the bend, where it like splits the thing like at the top a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
splits the image, and started doing more video work and experimenting from there. And now I'm still riding that wave of doing sort of that, retro tech art with the CRTs, and then combining it with now newer digital tools to get more out of the medium than what could be done previously.
Dude, it looks amazing. I like it's very just. Is there any? I'm just curious if there's any like psychedelic inspiration at all, or is it just purely like just for like that retro feel?
I mean, there's certainly some psychedelic interest. I've always liked that 60s, 70s psychedelic art, and like, like liquid light labs, right? Liquid light projectors. And I have one up in my room that Spencer's Gifts sold around 2001, 2002, that it's a oil wheel and it does the projection and it has the oil that spins, right? So that like psychedelic spinning thing that's there, that was like my first light projection, light show thing that I got when I was in high school. So I always like that aesthetic, those techniques, and I try to incorporate some of that into my video work. So some of the, like when I play a show, and I posted other stuff recently that I call psych glitch. where I take my analog stuff and I'm throwing it through Resolume, where I'm adding other effects, and the result is an incredibly hypnotic, psychedelic video that is a combination of both analog and digital effects processing.
I mean, you said so many things, and I'm like, I don't know any of that, which is phenomenal. It just means there's like so much more to learn. I enjoy not knowing, because it's like that's where mystery and magic can just like seep right into your Muggle world. You're like, oh shit, there's like way more awesome stuff out there than I thought there was. This is great, fantastic. So in my mind, when I was hearing you describe it, at least there was like a little bit of like a lava lamp feel to it. That was the closest like thing I could grasp onto. Is it
Yes.
similar?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. I like, and then a little bit of like a selfish thing for me was like, oh hey, like if I ever get to a point where I'm like need awesome music videos, this guy's got some great ideas that I can like maybe hopefully like we could work something out and figure out, get creative together. For me, the draw of this project is like just talking to cool people about cool stuff and seeing if there's any way we can make even more cool stuff in the future together, potentially.
Oh yeah, no, I'm actually working on a music video right now for someone. A pianist in Poland contacted me to do some effects on a music video that he had just shot. So I just actually sent him over the draft before this call. I sent him over the first draft of the completed work. So
That's awesome, dude. Is that your first one or just like
I've done some logo work for bands before,
sure?
but this will be my first full, video that I've done. It was professionally shot before he got it to me, so I was just doing the effects over top of it. But yeah, this will be the first one, and I'm really excited for him to like it. Hopefully he does.
Of course.
And for when it gets published in a month. I think the album is set to release in the end of April. So if I get selected, that'd be great. But we'll see what happens.
Sure, man. Sure. I'll after this or at some point, it would just make sure you send me that, because I want to listen to that and be like, oh, dude, I know what the dude who like made the video and was involved, and it's great music, probably, I assume, but maybe I don't know,
Yeah,
Polish pianist.
once he publishes it, I'll be sure to send it over. I will be very loud when it comes live.
Like, I was involved. It's fucking dope. Look at this. Listen to it. It's great. All right. So, first question of the official thing, narrative here. What is art to you?
Art is an expression of human emotion, and it's also designed to elicit a human emotion as well. Um, my art, my wife probably categorized it the best. It makes her eyes itch, right? It makes you almost uncomfortable to watch, but it's still mesmerizing that it pulls you in.
Mhm.
And that aesthetic is starting to catch on a bit, and I like hearing from my fans about what it means to them and like how they're impacted by it, and that just drives me to make more.
Amazing, man. It's a great way to say it. Makes my eyes itch. I thought that was hilarious. For me, I would say it's more of a almost slightly, there's either like a dreamy aspect to it, or there's another word that this one person I'm sort of friends with, but like liminal, like a liminal space. Like it's
Mhm.
sort of like off-putting, but it's like in a dreamy like way, where like this is kind of creepy, but like not. At least for me, like I'm not like super afraid of like creep, 'cause I'm like a clown, and clowns are kind of creepy. But it said like resonates in my soul in that way. But yeah, just fucking not being too much of a weirdo. So you said you also like, do you also make music? Did I hear that correct?
Yep, I'm a musician as well.
So what which, because now I actually remember the thing is that there's like visual art, which is more of like what you were describing earlier, and then like performative art, being a musician. You're not drawing unless you're writing out tabs or
No, I am not drawing at all.
right. So, but the photography still like in that visual realm. Which one, I'm just curious, have you spent more time doing, or would you consider yourself more of a musician or more of a photographer?
Well, I mean, I've been playing guitar since I was 16, right? So that's definitely the most time invested right now
Mm,
is music, but I didn't have much reach at all in my music, and my life right now prohibits me from really like having a band and like rehearsing and going out and actually like trying to get gigs,
mm,
which is unfortunate. So that's where the visual art is a good fallback, because with the internet, a lot of it is visual. My music has connected with some people on the internet, but it is so hard for that. But my visuals, stand out. It catches people's attention. So that's where I'm focusing the majority of my time right now in my creative outlets, is into my art. But I do combine my music with my visual stuff as well on occasion. So I have some Eurorack modular synthesizers that pairs really well with all this trippy psychedelic stuff that I've been putting out, and it has a vibe to it.
I know that definitely. I mean, I feel like the more encapsulating, I guess I would say, like the more encapsulating you can be, where you're mixing as many different of your mediums together. I feel like you can it just like spreads out and like almost like a mycelium network, just like gets interwoven with all the other things that other people do, and you're just like, this is crazy that I can make this one thing and then mix it with this other thing, and now it's this whole other blossoming creation just comes out of nowhere that you weren't really anticipating. It's just the more you have like a library or like a basement of stuff you can just pull out and be like, oh, this could go with this, and then it just takes on almost a life of its own. It's this a giant wave that like just comes through, and I'm more that I've dedicated myself to this whole artistic endeavor thing that I'm doing. It's just like, oh, this is crazy. This is awesome. I love this.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mix stuff all the time. Like just yesterday, I got a new device. It's a hardware-based HDMI glitching device, so it's one of the first ones that you can distort an HDMI signal in real time
Oh
as
shit.
it's passing through. Yeah, so I've been going through and remixing a whole bunch of my old videos, going through it to add that stuff on top, and the result has been really cool. So if you check out my Threads profile, just from yesterday's posts and today, you'll see a lot of that work being present.
Sure, you're mentioning it now, but just so the people, it's distorted reality, right?
Yeah, Distorted Reality IO.
Distorted
So
reality, right there.
Distorted
Everybody check it
Reality.
out. Great, great, great. So another question: why are you an artist? Like, what in your either formative years, or did you have like a midlife crisis where you're like, oh man, I gotta make a giant change in my life because something else fell apart that my identity was based around, or just why? What happened?
Yeah, I guess it is sort of a midlife crisis right now. I didn't think of it that way until you said that. Holy crap, I'm old. Um, but
Sorry.
it's okay. I remember being in fifth grade, and I took three colored pencils and put them together and drew. Right,
Mhm.
so sort of that RGB effect where you have, or that red and green effect in 3D glasses, and I was like, this looks really cool. And I started exploring it more, but then my art teacher told me I was doing it wrong.
Of course.
Of course they did, right? No, one color at a time. It's like, well, why can't I use
Yeah,
three
dude.
colors at a time? And that's sort of that questioning why, and sort of looking at how things are supposed to be done and doing things a different way, is actually my primary job. I'm a cybersecurity professional. I'm a professional hacker. So
Okay.
my job is to look at something and think about how to break it, or think
Mhm.
about how to use it in a different fashion, or how I'm going to lie to someone to like walk into their building, right?
Mhm.
So, that alternate view of reality, and examining social situations, or human situations, or even technology to abuse it or to do something different with it, is just what I do. And it was, I finally got like confidence in doing it, and not being afraid to put my works out there and sort of form this more artistic side of me that's really been dormant since I was a kid,
Mhm.
has been really fulfilling to hear, people say like, "Hey, I really like your stuff," unsolicited, for people to say that. And of course, the people following and liking my stuff is a good measure of that. But even in, real life, I'll share stuff to my normal Facebook page, my profile, And
Hmm.
like my friends were at a party and they're like, hey, that piece you did the other day, like that was really cool, so it's cool to have that feedback, and I'm bringing some sort of joy into people's lives with what I'm doing, that they're appreciating it, so that all helps.
For sure, man. It's doing it for the. I'm just gonna say the word. The people who have heard it before are gonna just gonna be like, "Oh, he's saying the word again." But for the Fukenschlaust, just to cause the effect without really having that like little voice in the back of your head, like, "Oh, I'm doing this so people will like me," or for the validation. I feel like is so important as an artist, where you're making something for the fact that like you think it's cool, and then when other people are like, "Oh yeah, that's definitely cool," you're like, "I was right. Cool. Thanks for saying what I thought." Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So let's go to yeah. It's so funny, dude, how these things keep like lining up. I say the thing and I'm like, oh yeah, now we're gonna do the other thing that I always do. So now I'm not sure what your background is with philosophy or whatnot, but there's a word coming from the Greek Aristotelian school of thought or Aristotle of telos. Or I like to say telos because I'm just trying to rebrand it and repackage it as if I'm the one who came up with it, even though I know I'm not, which is the idea of the diametric opposite. There's another word, but anatomical isn't the right word, but I can't think of it right now. But the opposite of Fugenschlaus, if you're just doing it without any awareness of how it was going to play out in the future, having a telos or telos that like, do you have an end goal or a purpose, whether that be divinely inspired or just something that's with coming you feel from your own consciousness that just like, do you have a end goal with why you're making your art?
um Trying to think, I've sort of just been along for the ride for the past 2 years, just exploring. Yeah,
For
so I don't know if I have an end goal.
Mhm.
I want to keep exploring. I mean, ideally, I would love to, have a as a good side hustle. Hell, if I could find a way to live fully off doing art, that would be amazing. But that's a really long struggle. I would like to do more live visuals and stuff and get that sort of space going. But I'm just along for the ride and seeing what new tech shows up and seeing what interests me the next day, and keep building on my experience and knowledge to combine and move different things together to create those pieces. It's funny, I was talking with one of my other glitch art friends, and he was saying that like you always have an aesthetic, right? Whether it's my AI stuff, my analog glitch art, or my digital glitch art, he's able to look at it and go, "Yep, nope, that's distorted reality." Just based on how I present, what comes out. So that recognition really helps, and to keep building on new stuff. Every time I do something new, it's still distinctly me,
Mhm.
and what I put into it.
So your style is very recognizable.
From the people who look at it, yes, yeah.
Cool, man. So I usually ask this a little bit later on, but since you keep bringing it up, and from what I've seen on Threads, you're pretty like feels like you got a little like fire in you about it. Is AI art real art?
I think it's a new medium, as controversial as that is. And a lot of the people that fight about it say it's like, well, I'm not the one drawing it. No, I'm not the one drawing it, right? But it's my ideas, my images. Now, a lot of my recent generations, I'm combining my own pieces into it. So using my glitch art and my other photography work and combining that and modifying it and going through, hundreds of iterations of these images to get to the aesthetic I'm looking for and to work off of that. I think it definitely is an art, and it's a brand new medium available to people that dive into it, at that level. Yes, you could just type a prompt and get a pretty picture, but that's not just like someone could just like draw a stick figure, right? Doesn't mean there's much to it. And once you really sit back and understand like my process, and I'm not even diving into it as far as other people dive into it with running it locally, and having like control net where you give it like a source image and it makes stuff over top of it, and playing with different seed values and other things you can control during the process. There's more when you run it locally that gives
Hmm.
you more creative control over it. That just, it's a new canvas is how I see it.
Oh, so you're saying it is definitely art then? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. No, that's I agree. Initially, I had my reservations about it, but it's like one of those things where unless there's going to be an EMP or the sun's going to explode and wipe out all of our technology, it's not going anywhere. So you kind of got to like either get on the wave or just go into the mountains and live in a cave and completely try to disconnect from society, as if it's not going to be a future either medium or arena of like the economy that's going to like completely change the way things are done. It's
Yeah,
disruptive technology.
it's definitely a disruptor, and it's an enabler. It allows, ideas to come to fruition a lot faster and a lot quicker than it could, otherwise. Not to say artists, need to integrate it into their workflow, but sometimes it could be, beneficial. If I'm not glitching off of an old VHS tape, I will glitch off of generations from AI. And I found, a couple different styles I can get out of it, that when it translates to analog, it carries through a pretty nice aesthetic as well. And of course, my normal photography does just as fine to do the same thing. But if I need like some crazy marble statue of a demon, right? Like, where am I going to find that? So I generate it,
Right.
right, and then I throw it through the analog rig to get that end result.
I mean, it's truly, honestly, like mind blowing stuff. Just from I basically grew up with the internet in my house. I remember having like this one really old computer, and then like the next one was like a Mac, and I think the Mac stayed around for a really long time. But it's just technology and the Moore's law. Just everything's getting smaller and faster, and it just at a pretty much an almost near exponential rate, if not an exponential rate. So it's just part of me is like, at least with children, like when I'm raising my kids, it's like I know I'm gonna have to like have them have access to the internet so they can like learn and like be people that know how to control, like use the basic commands that most people know how to use on a computer. But there's also that aspect of like the negative side of like social media ruining the mental health of teenage girls, or just the whole
And
your
teenage boys, I mean, it ruins their mental health too. Don't just say it's the girls. It affects both. It affects them differently, but it certainly affects both.
No, you're right. You're right. I just when I'm speaking on from the one time that I watched The Social Dilemma, and I know that that was like specifically the graph that they put in was about teenage girls and how like their suicide rates and all these different things like spike extremely hard the earlier they get access to social media. But they, of course, they didn't within their narrative and how everyone has the immediate empathy for the feminine persuasion, just gets that like gut reaction from men and women. But you're definitely right to not say or to discredit the masculine struggle of like, hey, like our brains get fucked up too if we look at internet and all of the success that we're seeing other people have, and how that like ruins their ability to be grateful for what you have, because you're like, well, why am I not? I'm not on that level. Yeah, like what the heck? I see this person who's the same age as me, but they have a yacht or like pretty women are around them. And it can unequivocally, yes, also not do well or do service for the mental health of a young boy growing up.
Mhm.
Okay. Another question. What inspires your art? Or, yeah, like what inspires you to sit down and glitch out an image and then put together some other thing on top of that, or then feed it into an AI system?
When I read that question when you sent it over, I knew I was going to have a hard time answering
Hmm.
this one, because I don't think I can say I have like one source of inspiration. And another thing that I came to realize, and I've said it on threads a couple times, I haven't found a way to control that inspiration, but I can be prepared for when that inspiration hits. And that's where I have my workflow down to a damn science at this point, where from source to final product can be done in a very quick time period without AI too. Without AI, just going through my analog rig, getting the video work, exporting the stills or exporting the video and editing it and getting something that I would present is pretty quick. And it really is just like, hey, what's interesting right now? Like right now I'm actually I went out a couple weeks ago thrift shops to try to find some old VHSs, specifically looking for some old like cyberpunk stuff, right? So get like
Mm.
Blade Runner on VHS or some other. There was a couple other ones I can't remember the names of them that I was looking for, or like Johnny Mnemonic, right? Things that, or even The Matrix on VHS. Just that old to get that vibe and throw it through my rig is something that I'm currently, working on.
Hmm.
And that whole retrofuturism where it's even easier now to consume analog mediums than it ever was. We have the convenience of digital and what that offers, but we can still bring that warmth of analog along for the ride. And I was musing with one of my coworkers about this, how vinyl sales have surpassed CDs and
Hmm.
MP3s, and you're like, what? And yeah, like I go to my Target, there's no CDs at my Target, but there's a whole damn row of vinyl. And you
That's
think
so
about
cool.
like why, because you can just stream stuff, but having that physical album still means something. And CRTs have a certain aesthetic to it that people like you and me, we grew up on it, but a lot of kids today, it's foreign to them. And it's very hard to get a true CRT aesthetic in a digital world. Yeah, there's some effects, there's some overlays that make it look like it, but you can still tell it's an edit. It's not a real analog image. It's also a lot more quiet now. When I fired up the VCR and stuff in my basement and showed my kids, and they're like, "Why is it so loud?" And this is just the mechanics of it working, right? We forget just how loud everything was in that hum of the CRT as it's on, that piercing, 60 hertz that's going. Yeah. But yeah, I don't have, a specific source of inspiration. It's not like I'm like, all right, here we go. This is how I'm going to get into it.
Hmm.
It's just methodically exploring the tools that I have, documenting how to do it, and if I see something in the world, I'm like, huh, that would look really cool if I threw that through, the rig, like neon, like signs and logos.
Mm.
Turn out really well when I throw them through my analog system and get, some work out of it. Actually, my best-selling piece has been so I live in Rochester, New York, and we have it's called the Flower City logo, and
Hmm.
I glitched that through my rig, and I went to a art market in October, and I have another one coming up here for the eclipse because we're going to be in totality this year,
Hmm.
and that logo glitched has been my best-selling piece, bar none, just to
Hmm.
connect with people, with that logo.
Sure. It's funny you say Rochester, Rochester. I'm from Albany originally.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so not too far from just
No, no,
3 hours
definitely.
down 90.
Yep. So it's just funny to hear you say that. You just said East Coast, so I'm like, oh, well, somewhere over there. But no, yeah, home turf, bro, home turf. Goddamn,
Yeah. I
small
grew up
small world.
I grew up south of Albany though, near Newburgh.
Okay.
So that's where I grew up, and then I moved up to Alfred after college.
One thing that popped into my brain as you were explaining your process was, have you ever like thought about creating content around how you do what you do? Like, not so much like if there's any like trade secrets or whatever, like keep that obviously always keep a trick for yourself. Don't teach everybody everything. But have you ever thought about like, hey, here's like a small YouTube thing or like a course that you could like monetize and be like, this is how you do what I do. If you Everybody who's interested in making similar things, this is how you do it.
I haven't on some of my socials. I've shared some like behind the scenes photos, right? Like here's my rig, here's, me doing stuff on the rig. And I do share out on my Patreon. You can get access to my patch notes for
Mhm.
the devices that I have, but I haven't done like a video of it.
Just a thought for you, maybe in the future at some point when you got the time and energy, just laying it out there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Phew. Yeah, I'd love to at least give people ideas, like if they can capitalize on them or find value or use out of them. And it's like, hey, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a person, sharing and caring and all that wonderful stuff. So in a similar vein as to the inspiration, do you feel like you have a muse? Do you feel like, so for me specifically, I have a very what I would describe as a strong connection to the divine. I've had times where like this thought or the sound like moves through me and gives me very specific like lyrics or like sounds for songs. So I'm just curious if you ever like been doing something and it had a thought or an idea like viscerally like pushed upon you or downloaded into your consciousness. I know that most people might think that's a little woo woo out there, but I'm just curious.
Similar along with like the inspiration, right? How like I never know when it's gonna hit. I just get
Hmm.
prepared for when it does. I wouldn't say I have a specific muse that pushes what I do by any means. Hang on, more kids just showed up. All right, well, I don't have one particular muse or even many
Hmm.
muses that I can, think of that, you know, get me into the state to receive the vision, right? Like I do see that, right? I need to be able to see the end product, or, if I'm walking along yesterday I was on a hike, and even though, it was still overcast, and well, you know how upstate New York gets in March and April here, there were still like some signs of, some life or a way to capture some of that, right?
Hmm.
And I just look for those angles and those opportunities, and I try to capitalize them as much as possible. So I guess maybe nature is one thing.
Sure.
The moon, I do a lot of work, a lot of photography on the moon, and then I'm getting ready for the solar eclipse here, so I have the proper equipment I need to capture the solar eclipse all the way through. So I'm really looking forward to that and having those end products that are, my images that I will
Hmm.
then go and do something else very interesting with. Different technology, the whole cyberpunk stuff is a source of inspiration, but yeah, there's not one muse, or, something that I would consider one in that light.
Sure. I interviewed a comedian last week, and he was saying that he said this thing about Stephen King, that Stephen King, his muse is he imagines his muse as like a middle-aged, like I don't know if he said unemployed or not, but like a middle-aged unemployed dude like smoking a cigar, like drinking or getting hammered or something, who says that he like sucks, which I thought was like super like Stephen King-esque. Like who else would say some weird shit like that? And then but then he said that his muse or like what he felt like this is like demographic or why he's like who he's creating his art for was like this like very niche subculture of human beings. So I just there's so many he just said like two completely other different ways of like what a muse even could be that just like blew my mind. So how you said nature I thought was a really great like just being inspired by or just the natural world in general and all of its beauty, like coming out of the yurt last night and being on like a small amount of ayahuasca and just like looking out at the stars and being like, man, this is a really great office to just have and be allowed to just be here and be witness to the beauty of the natural world. So I definitely resonated very deeply with that. Thought it was a phenomenal answer, my friend. So I just know that you're kind of getting closer to the end time here. So I just want to at least get the last question I like to end on within this because it'll probably be definitely the shortest episode so far. But that's fine by me. I'm not worried about it. It was great to even just to get this amount of time to sit down and talk to you and everything. So the question is, God or Goddess willing, hopefully not. But if I were to hit the end recording button and we were both had to bite the dust and this was our last thing we could ever share with the world, what like nugget of wisdom or advice would you give to the rest of the other brains or the 7 or 8 billion people that are all out there walking, crawling, or whatnot on the planet?
Try to focus on the positive. It's very easy to start going down and being negative about a lot of stuff that happens, but having certain emotions will attract other emotions and will affect everyone around you. So if you're able to stay as positive as you can, I found that that's when more good things happen. I went into this year very positive, right at the stroke of midnight for Jan 1, and I was like, this is going to be a strong year for me, both on my actual career and my art
Mm-hmm.
side project, and both have actually been doing really well in every measure that is a success. We're only in the third month, right? And that comes from a positive. Yep, I'm gonna find new ways to do this, right? I'm gonna explore something else. I'm gonna try to support other people as best as I can who are around me and create a community around this art and this adventure I'm on, I guess we could call it. But
Mm-hmm.
trying to stay on the positive side as much as possible has definitely makes life much more enjoyable.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more. Life is a contact sport. The more contacts that you have, a larger impact you can have. But if you're not doing that in a way that's positive, if you're I couldn't imagine if you bumped into somebody who like yells at you or like gives you a first impression that's like not positive, is negative. You're like, I don't know if I want to hang out with this person again or ever see them. Like I think that that's some bad juju that I don't want in my life. I want to feel good and be good and eat well and be around people who are on a similar wavelength of like improving or being the best, trying to become the best versions of themselves. So definitely, totally agree. I guess for my nugget of wisdom for today, I would say that it's important to commit to being that way. That like you have the choice every day when you wake up to focus on the negative or focus on the positive. And if you wake up and choose like, hey, today I'm gonna be happy just because I woke up, or I'm just gonna be happy because, then it's like it's even when things life sends you little like gritty moments where you're like really choosing that or leaning into it even when it's slightly uncomfortable because of somebody annoys you at work or somebody beep honks at you in traffic and you just like laugh it off and not take yourself too seriously. Like I'm a clown for cripe's sake, and I just like try to take myself so seriously, and I need to not. I need to just be able to laugh at the things that don't go my way when they don't go my way, and when they do go my way, just be grateful that life is going well for me.
Yep.
All right, man. Tom, I appreciate you sitting down with me today. Say this thing that a different guest said. I like to live light, travel light, be the light, and enjoy the ride when it's going good.
All right, cool, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. This was fun.